I liked that movie. It was scary.
Wow, well, the first one was, but the rest sucked.
Everybody knows horror sequels are terrible, right? Wrong. Today, I'm going to be looking at one of these overlooked and often maligned pieces of cinema history to see the good and the bad, to find the diamonds in the rough. My name is Horrorman Mike, and this is Sequels Don't Suck. Hello, horror freaks, and welcome back to Sequels Don't Suck. I was recently on a horror forum on a site somewhere, I don't remember where, but somebody posed an interesting question to the community. What do you think is the very first slasher film? Many people pointed to the Italian murder mysteries known as Gallios. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Some pointed to the British thriller Peeping Tom from 1960. Some pointed to the American murder mystery Psycho, also from 1960. Others chimed in with the Canadian film Black Christmas from 1974. But many people voiced that the slasher genre as we know it was born in 1978 with the low-budget American film Halloween from John Carpenter. Now, whether Halloween is the first slasher film or not is a matter of opinion, but I will admit that the butterfly effect that this movie had on the horror genre as a whole is undeniable. Was it the first movie that had multiple murders occur on the same evening? No. Was it the first movie to use the killer's first-person perspective? No. Was it the first time a female student has been singled out and stalked by a mentally deranged killer? Hardly. Halloween wasn't the first film to have any of those tropes, and yet at the same time, it may have been the first movie to meld all of those tropes together in one film, which, along with really good cinematography and a great soundtrack, makes Halloween greater than the sum of its parts. It spawned a staggering amount of sequels across 3 different timelines and offshoots and remakes, not to mention imitators. There were so many Halloween imitators out there. I'm not even going to try to make a list. It was so hugely successful that, of course, a sequel was greenlit, and that brings us to today's film, one of my personal favorite slasher sequels, Halloween 2. One minor complaint that I have about John Carpenter as a filmmaker is that the first acts of his movies are often really slow burn and can be kind of boring. I felt this with Assault on Precinct 13, They Live, the very beginning of The Thing, and I definitely feel that the opening half, the daylight half of Halloween, drags on for just so long. Halloween 2 has none of that. It opens up right with a recap of Halloween's conclusion and picks up where the first film left off, with Dr. Samuel Loomis going hysterical that he shot his patient 6 times and Michael just got up and walked away. Loomis actually shot him 7 times, really, because of combining new and archive footage. And we move right into the action of Halloween 2, which continues the night that he came home. The major issue that came up with doing a sequel was what to do with the story. John Carpenter and Deborah Hill had written Halloween to just be a one-off film. They had never had any thought or intention of doing a sequel, and yet here they were trying to come up with a script. They developed the plot reveal that Laurie Strode was a younger sister of Michael Myers that wasn't born yet when Michael went on his initial killing spree. Making the final girl and the killer related at least gives some plausibility as to why Michael is stalking her in particular. I don't think John Carpenter or Deborah Hill have been satisfied with this plot twist, even though it set the stage for several sequels to come. They didn't even want to direct Halloween 2, so the job went to Rick Rosenthal, who I think does a fine job. In particular, I love the cinematography and the use of light, shadows, and darkness in this film. Perhaps more so than Halloween 1, Michael Myers really does live up to his reputation as the Shape, as he appears in the background of several shots of this film, the foreground characters unaware of his presence. This movie does this a lot. Like a lot. Like a lot. I had this movie on tape, and it wasn't until I upgraded to the widescreen collector's edition DVD that I even noticed how many shots Michael is actually in the background of in this film. But even taking Michael out of the picture, there are a lot of very wide, empty shots of hospital corridors, which gives the whole movie an air of creepiness. Hospitals are supposed to be bright and warm and safe, but no, not this one, no. Dick Warlock played the Shape in Halloween 2, as opposed to Nick Castle in the first one. Dick does a really good job here, having a presence that is ever watching and walking silently but deliberately. Jamie Lee Curtis and Donald Pleasence reprise their roles from the first film. Jamie Lee continues to be a terrific survivor character. She's tough and resourceful, although unfortunately I feel like they didn't really do much with her in the sequel to expand on her character. I attribute that more to the script rather than any flaw on Jamie Lee's part. Donald Pleasence, however, gives a bit more personality when he starts to spiral into his obsessive madness when he realizes how unstoppable Michael really is.
I shot him 6 times. I shot him 6 times. I shot him in the heart. Can't have got you very far. Come on. I shot him 6 times.
This kind of manic fear and fascination of Michael would continue on in the series well into parts 4, 5, and 6. Particularly in part 5, where Loomis uses a little girl as living bait for a trap. But in part 2, Dr. Loomis still has monologues about Sam Hain and the darkness inside ourselves, little moments dribbled in here and there to match his amazing monologue that he delivered in the first film. Granted, this movie does nothing to actually match that monologue for the first film, but seeing Donald Pleasence get really serious and deliver these heavy lines is still really, really satisfying, and I'm glad that Halloween 2 gives the character these moments.
Sam Hain isn't evil spirits. It isn't goblins, ghosts, or witches. It's the unconscious mind. We're all afraid of the dark inside ourselves.
This film has had its fair share of criticisms for having unnecessary kills, a plot that doesn't really go anywhere, very little character development, and those are all very fair criticisms. I still count Halloween 2 as a classic for being a direct continuation of the first film, having really creepy visuals, having a fair amount of suspense and action, and overall being the perfect film to double feature with Halloween. Despite the fact that Deborah Hill and John Carpenter didn't want to do this movie and just kind of coughed it into existence, I think director Rick Rosenthal did a phenomenal job with the visuals and tying all the pieces together, considering all of the other sequels, the reboots, the legacy sequels, which are on a completely different timeline, considering everything in the Halloween franchise. This film really is the best direct sequel to Halloween. It has a lot of the same crew, the film stock is roughly the same, and it takes place on the same night as the previous film. Looking at all the other films in this franchise, truly none of them encapsulate the look, the feel, the mood, the tone, and the emotion of Halloween quite like Halloween 2. It's almost bittersweet that we still have not and probably never will get a sequel quite like this again.
Is this some kind of joke? I've been trick-or-treated to death tonight.
You don't know what death is.
That does it for me, and that does it for Halloween 2. What are your thoughts on Halloween 2? Or is there a horror sequel you want to see me cover in the future? Please leave a comment below. While you're there, I appreciate if you give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel and stay notified for when I upload more content in the future. For today, I am Horrorman Mike, and this has been Sequels Don't Suck. Despite the fact that Deborah Hill and John Carpenter didn't want... hold on. Blah, blah, blah. Did they want anything to do with this movie? No, they fucking didn't. Alright, we're gonna do that over. Please leave a comment below. While you're there, can you fucking tell me I don't know how to read a script and don't know how to talk? Sorry, I lost my place in the script. Dead air, man. It's dead air. Thank God I'm not streaming.